According to CBS News, 50-year-old stay-at-home husband David Trronis desperately wanted to appear on reality television. In late April of 2018, he managed to secure himself a spot on the show Zombie House Flipping, where he would be featured renovating his newly bought house with his then-wife, 39-year-old financial consultant Shanti Cooper. The only problem was that Shanti wasn't nearly as interested in being on TV, so she refused to sign off on the program, which resulted in David beating and then strangling her to death in the early hours of the following morning. He called 911 roughly 12 hours later at 3:51 p.m.
Hello?
She stopped breathing and trying to do CPR. I can't.
Okay, listen to me. Can you tell me what your address is?
Police and paramedics soon.
It's chilling to hear David's 911 call. The way he plays the grieving husband while hiding such a horrific act, it's a gut punch. Shanti's refusal to join his reality TV dream cost her life, and that motive feels so petty, so cruel. How does someone's ego drive them to this? It makes you wonder what's brewing beneath the surface in people we think we know.
Nose and mouth. He was then taken to the police station as a witness, where they swapped out his blood-stained clothing for a custody suit. He was also given a water, a blanket, and a box of tissues, then taken to room 6, where he was reassured that someone would be right with him to answer his questions, which wasn't entirely true. He was left in there by himself for 4 hours and 9 minutes before he knocked on the door to use the bathroom.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to bother you. May I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't take a genius to recognize that David's behavior is already suspicious. Ask yourself if you'd be acting like this in the scenario he's claiming to be in. You find your significant other unresponsive in a bathtub. Then police leave you in a cold room for 4 hours without telling you anything. You might just ask someone, what the hell is going on? Or what the status of your wife is, and you probably wouldn't be all that polite and apologetic for just trying to use the bathroom. He returns from the bathroom and sits there for another 3 minutes. The detectives will now enter the room to commence the interrogation. The time on that chair. They'll afford him the false belief they are buying into his act as the grieving husband. But as soon as he gives them his initial version of events, the pressure will rapidly accelerate, in a manner that David is in no way anticipating.
What would you like to eat? And I'll run down.
Just something simple. Just saltines or peanut butter crackers.
Anything like that? Okay,
Yeah.
that's not a problem. We'll be right back.
Here's water, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I can take that one.
Yes.
Open up things. Okay, is that good?
Perfect.
All right. I'm with you. I haven't eaten since this morning. I'm sorry this is taking so long. You are David, I believe? Okay, all right. I'm Detective Teresa Sprague, and this is Detective Barb McClelland.
Hey.
First of all, on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department, we want to say how sorry we are for your loss.
So this is the first, out of a total 11, of David's fake cries. Their intensity level will peak about halfway through this video, during some of the more embarrassing performances you're ever likely to witness on the internet. But from that moment on, you'll notice these acts steadily diminish, as the detective makes it more and more abundantly obvious that she knows he's lying.
David, and also for everything that you're going through. I know this is very traumatic for you, okay?
They start by collecting David's basic information.
Okay, blonde or brown hair? Blue. Okay. Okay. Hazel eyes, maybe?
Take hazel.
Blue, hazel, okay.
They're dirty blue. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a home phone?
There is.
Okay.
I can't remember the last 4 digits. It's 407. The next 3 are easy, 704, the opposite, and I never call it.
David's fake tears are infuriating. Knowing he's lying, you can feel the detective's restraint as they play. It's not just the act, it's the betrayal of Shanti, who trusted him. This case reminds us how manipulators hide behind charm, and it's sickening to see him try to fool everyone. Have you ever met someone whose words just didn't add up? That's David, but on a deadly level.
We love the...
This is Keith Ory, the producer of the house-flipping show that David wanted to be on.
When you would be interacting with the Trronis related to
your work on the house and also the show, who was your primary point of contact?
Oh, Dave was. He would communicate her desires. I would see her, but it was more like Dave's full-time job, almost, I guess I would say.
Did you ever know during your time that you knew Dave to have any other job?
I was aware that he had explained to me that he'd worked for a chemical company up north somewhere.
I actually never knew what Dave did for a living. When my husband had asked him, he said he was into sales, but I don't really know what that means.
David never worked in sales or at a chemical company. You're now about to see Keith explain that he insisted on having a formal sit-down with Shanti to make sure that she was fully on board.
It was difficult to get them both together, but I explained ultimately that we couldn't go forward if I wasn't able to sit down with them both.
Ultimately, you're able to get this sit-down scheduled. Tell the jury about that meeting.
I arrived at the house to meet Dave and Shanti, and she was... by my estimation, unhappy to be there. And it was in a sort of a tense state. It was obvious that she was unhappy with something, and she was only there as long as she absolutely had to be, and then left.
This all occurred.
8:30, we're winding down. 9 o'clock, lights are low.
Shanti's son gets picked up the next day at around 5 p.m.
5 p.m.-ish, okay. All right, and then do you guys go anywhere, do anything, or you stay at home?
We made dinner together that night. And,
So that would have been Monday night. Did you watch TV?
he did.
Any idea what?
American Idol.
Okay, so you wake up Tuesday morning and you're in the garage on the couch?
Mm-hmm. I usually wait for her to come down. She came down after 7 o'clock, probably almost 7:30.
Shanti went back upstairs and David started doing chores around the house. He's now about to mention the last time he supposedly saw Shanti alive, and then break into another fake hysteric. Yet this time, he will get no reassuring feedback from the detective, and the charade will rapidly dissipate.
Just, when she came out again. That's how I saw it.
She came down again, and what happened?
Came down. And I've thought about it. I'm trying to think exactly what time it is, but I don't know exactly. I would say probably 9:15. And the reason I know that is
she said she was going to the dentist, and he said he was going for a walk. He now attempts another fake cry, but gets ignored again.
And,
Did you take the dogs for a walk?
I went for a walk.
By yourself?
By myself.
And where'd you go?
I went for Lake Reserve, so I went to Orange.
He comes back home and feeds the dogs.
That's all that I can remember until I went upstairs to see when we were going to pick up Jackson.
Okay, and what happens when you enter the home? Is anything unusual? When you enter the garage apartment?
So, I could hear the water is running, but it's not running. It's not like the sound of a shower running. It's just, it's trickling out of the spout.
Okay, and so you walk toward the water that you're hearing?
Yeah, looking at the bathroom.
Okay.
Just in case you didn't catch the passive-aggressive nature of that response, here it is again without subtitles.
So you walk toward the water that you're hearing?
Yeah, looking at the bathroom.
Okay.
Just look at David's face. Poor David really doesn't want to be getting grilled like this anymore. Keep in mind it's almost 11 p.m. He likely didn't get a whole lot of sleep the night before, and he's been acting his ass off all throughout the day. He'll at this point be exhausted, and want nothing more than to get out of that police station. But he doesn't want to challenge the detective directly, and risk losing her approval. Hence he throws out a weak little display of passive aggression to see if she'll pick up on the hint, but it of course gets ignored. She will simply continue pressing with an unsympathetic tone which will cause David to revert back to appeasement. He will then begin recounting the horrific circumstances under which he's...
Hearing David describe finding Shanti, knowing he caused her pain, is haunting. The detective's cold response shows they're done with his games. Shanti's injuries, Her swollen face, fractured skull, tell a story of rage, not an accident. It's hard not to feel anger at his cowardice, dodging accountability while Shanti's son lost his mom. This is where the mask starts to slip, and it's both gripping and heartbreaking.
Significant degree.
She seems to shed.
Her injuries to me, David, seem really significant. More significant than from a soft tissue fall. More significant than from me tripping and falling and hitting my head and being knocked unconscious.
She elaborates on the inconsistencies while David just sits there and nods.
The issue I'm having with is I absolutely think that she was deceased before you left to go to the park.
She repeats what she said a few more times, while David just keeps doing what he's doing.
Okay, so I think that you've told us a significant amount of information. You've been very cooperative, but I also think that you've left some stuff out. And I think you've left some stuff out that is maybe something got out of hand, maybe you didn't mean for it to happen, maybe you got upset, but there's something that happened between the two of you before you left that house. Because she was deceased, or on her way to being deceased, before you left that house. Now, if there's an explanation, I want to hear it.
I told you everything.
But you've left out something, David, because this woman has significant injuries. Okay, this is not from a fall. Did you harm Shanti in any way?
Absolutely not.
Did you choke her?
Absolutely not.
Did you strangle her?
Without question, no.
Did you beat her?
No.
Did you hit her with anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do you have injuries?
I do not. I do have some scratches from the bromeliads and from the bougainvillea.
Okay.
I do trim them myself.
Aside from the scratches from his plants, David had no injuries that could indicate a struggle. But this might explain why.
You noticed a single earring on the nightstand?
A single what?
A single diamond earring on the nightstand.
Yes.
And what was the significance of that?
Looks like she removed it before bed and didn't get a chance to remove the other one.
Because you believe that's when the attack occurred.
On the edge of the bed, where the blood was found on the side rail, yes. And I think when she turned to take that earring out, she didn't see it coming.
Would you mind, just for me to be able to say David is a perfect gentleman and is in the clear and did not harm his wife, would you mind taking a polygraph and
To the detective. It doesn't correlate with anything in particular. It's just sort of interesting to watch.
My guess is she wasn't treating you very well. And there's only so much anyone can take before they snap.
Appreciate the kind things that you've said.
I'm missing what you're saying because of your suit that you're moving, but I'm kind of missing it. It's really loud, but I missed what you said because you're talking so low.
I'm sorry, it's blowing up. I appreciate the things that you've said and the genuine consideration and thoughtfulness behind it.
David, you killed this woman.
I cooperated so I could give you all the information and all.
You cooperated because you thought that your language would overwhelm us, and you thought you could pull the wool over our
I
eyes.
don't think there was any effort to do that.
All these tangents, all this flowery,
The tangents
fancy
were
language,
answers to
all the
questions that you
details.
asked, to questions that you asked.
You know, you fake cried for about 7 or 8 hours today. Not one tear came out of your eyes. Not one. Not one. Not on scene with the officers. Not in this room.
You have fake cried over this woman's death since we made contact with you for hours. And every single time you fake cried, we wrote it down. Not one tear came out of your eyes, not one. Nope. Okay? We've been extremely patient with you for a very long time. I am losing my patience at this point because there is not a lick of remorse for what you did to this woman. Not even a little bit. You're staring at a woman you're telling us you're in love with, and you've done nothing the whole time but close your eyes, huddle up, and protect your own ass. So we're just going to prove you're full of shit and solve this case. And I'm glad you think that's funny. I'm glad you think that's funny.
The investigators would exit the room shortly after this moment, at 4:56 a.m. David would then sit there for a little. He may have thought he had just gotten away with murder, but a grand jury indicted him 4 months later, and he was arrested at his mother's house. When he was told he was facing life imprisonment, and that the evidence against him was overwhelming, he started acting crazy, and went for the insanity defense. He was then sent to a maximum security psych unit, where he spent 5 years before a judge ruled him competent to stand trial. This is what he looked like on the day he was transferred back to jail. His trial began on October 12th and lasted 6 days. He maintained his plea of not guilty, with his official defense being that he was out of the house walking the dogs while an unknown intruder broke in and murdered Shanti.
You heard about the sleeping arrangement. You heard how the defendant was sleeping in the garage with the dogs while Shanti was staying in the essential, one-bedroom apartment separate and apart from him. And this had been going on, for over a year. This was an intentional killing. A random stranger that comes into a house isn't going to, take the time that it takes to strangle a person, to move them to a tub. Not take anything? Doesn't make any sense. Leave no sign behind, no fingerprints, no DNA? That doesn't make any sense. You have the severe beating of Shanti. You have the injuries to both sides of her face. You have the fractured skull, the swollen shut eye, the damaged eye on the other side. You saw the intense bruising and bleeding in both sides of her mouth. This was a beating. So at some point in that beating, the defendant, and you can infer this from the facts, intended to cause the death. He did it with a premeditated design. We ask that you convict him of first-degree murder. Thank you.
The defense mainly tries to evoke empathy for the defendant, but it ends up just roasting the fake crazy out of him.
Shanti's the only source of the income. She's the breadwinner. He does nothing other than take care of the pool and the dogs. It's about circumstantial evidence, pure supposition, all steered by Teresa Sprague, who prejudged this case based upon a phone call received from her from an officer at the scene about these crocodile tears. This is just a hunch, ladies and gentlemen. A hunch. If you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras sort of thing, because that's the point. You don't get to fit a square peg in a round hole because it's convenient. And that's what happened here. With the rush to judgment, with the confirmational bias, those two detectives went into a room with David Trronis and worked him over. He sat there for 16 hours, bared his soul to them, literally and figuratively, told them what he knew, told them what he saw. The government's the one spinning here. The government's the one taking the insignificant and stacking them into a pyramid, and I'm confident that after carefully deliberating, that you'll come back and return the only just verdict in this case, and that's a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. So it says we all, dated at Orange County, Florida, on the 18th day of October, 2023, signed by the foreperson.
In the midst of this tragedy, Shanti's impact as a mother was shown through her son Jackson. His victim impact statement was both heartrending and dignified.
My family and I have been waiting for about 5 years for justice. I miss her so much. I would have never thought the day before was the last time I would see my mother alive. I miss the times where we would go to Universal, or just the simple times, like walking the dogs or going to the park. She was the best mom I could ever ask for. That's it.
Defense, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jackson. Mr. Trronis, anything you wish to say prior to sentencing? I think you just said no, is that right? Then in this case, the court will adjudicate you guilty. We'll sentence you to life imprisonment. Luck to you, sir. And the court will be in recess.
This is his latest mugshot. He is currently being housed at the Graceville Correctional Facility in maximum security, where he is expected to remain.
Jackson's words hit like a tidal wave. Losing his mom to such a senseless act, it's a wound that never heals. The guilty verdict feels like justice, but it can't bring Shanti back. This case shows how one person's selfishness can shatter lives. Let's honor Shanti by remembering her as the loving mom Jackson described, not just a victim. What do you take from this tragedy?